Imagine meeting a man online who seems to be everything you have ever dreamed of: successful, fit, and incredibly attentive. This is exactly what happened to Kirsty, a woman in her 30s from North Yorkshire, when she matched with a charismatic businessman supposedly working in Turkey. He shared photos of his life and even granted her access to a banking portal showing over $600,000 in savings. He looked like a perfect partner, but in reality, Kirsty was walking into a meticulously designed trap. Within just 2 weeks, the fairy tale turned into a nightmare. The man claimed he had been mugged in northern Cyprus, leaving him without his phones or access to his funds. Driven by love and desire to have Kirsty buy him a new smartphone and began transferring money to cover his bills. Over the next 2 months, she sent a staggering £80,000. £50,000 of them she had borrowed from her own family. She believed every word because she could hear his voice and see his wealth on the screen. However, the smartphone she mailed did not go to Cyprus. It ended up in Lagos, Nigeria. The man was not a British businessman, but a professional operative using sophisticated voice disguises to mask his accent. The banking website was a high-end fake registrar in Baltimore. Kirsty did not just lose her life savings, she became a data point in a global epidemic that has seen fraud losses exceed $500 billion annually. This is not just about one woman, it is about an international web odyssey that is becoming impossible to track. Welcome back to my channel where we peel back the layers of a global shadow economy. Today, we are looking at an industry that is currently more profitable than many Fortune 500 companies: the industrialization of fraud. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how criminal syndicates have turned human psychological and modern technology into a weapon of mass extraction. We're going to explore the dark corridors of scam compounds in Southern Asia, where the person on the other end of your phone might be a prisoner themselves. We will analyze how geopolitical chaos and the aftermath of the pandemic created a perfect storm for these networks to flourish across borders. Most importantly, we'll discuss why even the most powerful governments in the world are currently losing this battle. If you want to understand the hidden forces shaping our digital safety and stay ahead of the predators, you need to see this full breakdown. This is information that the platforms and banks often gloss over to avoid panic. Before we dive into the chilling mechanism of the scam farms, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. In this era of deepfakes and AI manipulation, staying informed is your only real defense. Let's get into the facts. I am Blondie Warrior, welcome to my channel. To understand why people like Kirsty fall victim to these schemes, we have to look at the numbers at the tech. Since the lockdowns of 2020, our lives have migrated online and the criminals followed us there. According to the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, global fraud losses have now crossed the $500 billion mark. In the United Kingdom alone, ramen scams surged by 20% in the first quarter 2025 compared to the previous year. This is no longer a few individuals walking out of a basement. It is a corporate-style operation. The modus scammer utilizes a suite of tools that would impress a Silicon Valley startup. They use AI-driven voice cloning to mimic local accent or even specific relatives. They deploy sophisticated fake banking interfaces that look identical to legitimate institutions, often registered investors in cities like Baltimore, to evade simple domain filters. The pandemic created a massive pool of unemployed, tech-savvy workers globally, providing criminal gangs with a cheap, a desperate labor force. These networkers leverage social media platforms like WhatsApp on Telegram to beat intimacy quickly bypassing the security filters of traditional dating sites. We're seeing a strategic shift where the goal is not just a quick hit but a long-term psychological extraction that drains the victim bank account, their credit, and their family's resources. The most terrifying aspect of this industry is the human cost on both sides on the screen. Investigation by the BBC and the United Nations have uncovered massive scam compounds in countries like Myanmar and Cambodia. These are not just offices, they're high-security prisons where thousands of people are held against their will. Many of these workers were lured by bogus job advertisements for high-paying roles in customer service or teaching, for example. Once they arrive at the airport, their passports are confiscated and they are driven to remote compounds controlled by armed gangs. Inside these walls, the conditions are brutal. Records found in a recently vacated camp in Cambodia show that every movement is monitored, even down to how many minutes an employee spends in the lavatory. The walls are covered in motivation slogans like "money coming from everywhere," written in Chinese characters designed to keep the workers focused on their targets. If a worker fails to defraud enough people in the West, they face solitary confinement, beatings, or being sold to another compound where the treatment is even worse. In Myanmar, the civil war following the 2025 military coup has created a lawless zone where the censors thrive without any fear of the government intervention. This means that for every victim in a wealthy nation losing their savings, there is often another victim on the other end of the line, forced to lie at a gunpoint. It is a cycle of tragedy. Why can't we just shut these censors down? The answer lies in the complex reality of international relations and failed state. Former law enforcement official from Interpol described these locations as gray zones where local authorities either have no control or are directly profiting from the illegal activity. In Northeast India, some call centers operate as legitimate business during the day and flip to scam operation at night to coincide with the working hours of victims in the UK, the US, and Australia. The common language of English makes this region the perfect hubs for targeting wealthy Westerns. Even in a more stable area like Europe, this operation makes them difficult to dismantle. There is also a massive imbalance in resources. At the Global Fraud Summit in Vienna, representatives from over 40 countries discussed the need for collaboration, but the tension was obvious. Developing nations in South Asia and West Africa often lacked forensic accountants and crypto experts needed to track their sophisticated network. They are being asked to prioritize financial crimes against foreigners while they're struggling with basic domestic security and economic survival. Without the massive transfer of a technical expertise and resources from wealthy nations to this hub, the criminal gangs will continue to operate with near total impunity. They know exactly which borders to cross and which jurisdiction to hide in to stay one step ahead of the law. The fight back is finally beginning, but it's a race to gain time. The Vienna summit saw 44 nations sign a pledge to disrupt fraud at the source, but many key countries where these gangs operate have yet joined that agreement. This is a growing realization that soft power and diplomatic pressure might not be enough. UK Foreign Minister Law Hansen of Flynn has noted that while international operation is the goal, the focus must be on making fraud harder and more expensive for the criminal. This means big tech companies like Meta, Amazon, and Google must take more responsibility. Some progress is being made. The dating John Match.com now claims to remove 50 fake accounts every single minute. In Singapore, Google worked with the government to block nearly 2.8 million malicious apps that were designed to steal banking credentials through side loading. However, experts argue that these efforts are still reacting rather than proactive. The criminal networks are fleet of foot. As soon as one platform becomes too secure, they migrate to another. Their reliance on digital firms to police themselves has long been a weak point in our defense. To truly turn the tide, we need a level of operational trust between big business and law enforcement that simply does not exist yet. Until we can freeze assets in real time across borders, the scammers will continue to see the global financial system at their personal playground. The stories we have discussed today are a wake-up call for all of us. The technology is moving faster than our ability to regulate it, and the predators are more organized than the protectors. I want to hear from you. Have you ever received a call or a message that felt just a little too real? Perhaps in a relative distress or a bank official with an urgent warning? Did it happen to you? Many of these attempts now use voice fragments gathered from your own social media videos. Sharing your experiences in the comments is not just about venting. It helps others recognize the patterns before it is too late. What was the red flag that made you stop? Let's start a conversation about the reality of digital safety in 2026. Your insights could be very thin that saves someone else from $10K mistake. In the end, the story of Kirsty and the scam farms of cells in Asia teaches us that we are living in a world where the old rules of trust are obsolete. These criminal organizations will have successfully weaponized our need for connection and our fear of loss. They operate in the shadows of geopolitical conflicts and exploit the digital gaps in our law. But while the technology is new, the solution is ancient: skepticism and verification. Never send money to someone you have not met in person, regardless of their bank balances or how familiar the voice sounds. Use hardware security keys, enable multi-factor authentication, and be extremely careful about what personal data you share online. The fight against global fraud is not just a job for the police or tech giants. It starts with our own digital hygiene. We must remain vigilant, not out of fear, but out of the clear understanding of the world we now inhabit. Stay safe, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in my next deep dive